Story 1. Emma's Warning. The relentless rain that morning was just the beginning of an eerie autumn day that I'll never shake from my memory. There's something unsettling about driving through a storm, especially when the sky is painted an angry shade of gray, and the raindrops beat insistently against the car, like they're trying to relay a message. As I drove my daughters, 3-year-old Emma and 6-month-old Lily, to daycare, the road seemed to be enveloped in an almost palpable mist, making the trees appear like ghostly silhouettes. The haunting atmosphere was intensified by the occasional distant thunder, each rumble causing Emma to grip her book a little tighter. Then, out of nowhere, her voice cut through the ambiance, dripping with distress. "Daddy, we forgot the diaper bag." I quickly scanned the back seat. She was right, but we were already running late, and I knew the daycare had extra supplies. "It's all right, Emma. The daycare has everything we need." However, Emma's voice reached an unprecedented pitch of desperation. "No, Daddy. We have to go back. Now." There was an urgency in her tone that I hadn't encountered before. My fatherly instincts, combined with the chilling atmosphere, made me heed her words. I took a U-turn and headed home. As we approached our house, the rain intensified, as if trying to rush us. I darted inside, grabbed the pink diaper bag, and hurried back to the car. Now back on the route to the daycare, the gloom outside seemed denser, and that's when we saw it, a gruesome scene. 2 vehicles, mangled beyond recognition. The rain was washing away the sinister shades of red that tainted the road. As the realization dawned upon me, a chilling thought gripped my mind. Those cars had been right next to us. If we hadn't turned back. I gulped, trying to push away the morbid thoughts, when Emma's soft voice broke my trance. She said we shouldn't be here right now. Confused, I asked, "Who, Emma?" "The little girl. She was sitting right next to you, Daddy. She told me if we didn't go back for the bag, we would be part of the scary scene." I felt my heart plummet. There was no girl. There had never been any girl in the car. I pulled over, taking a moment to digest the chilling revelation. My little Emma seemed to be in touch with something, or someone, beyond our realm. We finally made it to the daycare. The whole day, I couldn't shake off the eerie feeling. Every little sound, every shadow seemed to remind me of the spectral passenger that might have been with us that morning. That night, after the kids were asleep, I did some digging. I found an old news article from a few years prior. It detailed a tragic accident on the very same road we traveled that morning. The victim was a young girl, eerily similar in description to the one Emma mentioned. Was she our guardian, trying to save us from a fate she couldn't escape? I may never know, but every time I drive down that road, especially on rainy autumn mornings, I can't help but feel a chill, wondering about the unseen forces that might be watching over us.
Story 2. The Dollhouse in the Attic. Last autumn, we were invited to spend a weekend at my friend Lacey's new home. They'd only been living there for a few weeks, so the idea was to help them settle in, while also having a small get-together with our old college group. The weather was perfectly in tune with the season, cold, rainy, and eerie. Every droplet that hit the window seemed like nature's attempt to set the mood for what lay ahead. The house itself was one of those magnificent old estates, with character oozing from every brick and timber. As we pulled up, the home stood tall and proud, despite the years of wear and tear visible on its facade. Lacey had always wanted a place with a history. "You never know what stories these walls might have to tell," she'd often say. Oh, how right she was. The evening started well. We had some wine, shared laughs and memories. The warmth of friendship juxtaposed against the chilly atmosphere outside was comforting. However, as the night unfolded, Lacey brought up an interesting discovery. "So, while we were moving in," she began, her eyes twinkling with mischief, "we found something unusual in the attic." She walked away and returned with what seemed to be a beautifully handcrafted dollhouse. Intricate details, miniature furniture inside, it was an impressive piece of work. Yet, there was something unsettling about it. The tiny dolls inside looked almost too lifelike, each with an expression frozen in time. Lacey continued, "Isn't it exquisite? We found it tucked away behind some old crates. There's no record of it in the house's inventory, so it's probably been there for decades." The room went quiet, save for the soft tick-tock of the old grandfather clock and the rhythmic pattering of the rain outside. As parents, my husband and I had brought our 2-year-old daughter Emily along with us. Like any toddler, her imagination was wild and free. That evening, as I put her to bed in one of the guest rooms, she seemed unusually fixated on a corner of the ceiling. "What are you looking at, sweetie?" I asked, but she just giggled and snuggled deeper into her covers. It must have been around 2 a.m. when I was jolted awake by a loud thud. Rushing to Emily's room, I found her on the floor, rubbing her eyes, confused. It was odd. She'd never fallen out of bed before. Assuring myself it was just an accident, I tucked her back in, kissed her goodnight, and tried to shake off the uneasy feeling that had settled in my stomach. The next morning, over a hearty breakfast, my husband, always the joker, turned to Emily and asked, "Did Mommy push you out of bed last night?" With all the seriousness a 2-year-old can muster, Emily replied, "No, the monster pulled me out of bed." And as if on cue, her eyes wandered upward, settling on a spot on the ceiling. A chilling silence settled over the room. Trying to break the tension, I laughed it off, attributing it to a child's wild imagination. But there was a nagging feeling inside that couldn't be brushed away. Lacey, sensing the unease, suggested we all go for a walk outside to enjoy the fall colors. As the day went on, I couldn't help but think about the dollhouse. There was a compulsion to investigate it further. So, when everyone was busy, I sneaked up to the attic. The dollhouse looked even more enchanting up close. I peered inside, studying each room, marveling at the craftsmanship. But then, something caught my eye. In one of the rooms was a miniature bed, and next to it was a small doll lying on the floor. The positioning was eerily similar to how I found Emily last night, and right above the bed, in the dollhouse ceiling, was a tiny hole, mirroring the spot Emily kept looking at. Chills ran down my spine, but curiosity pushed me further. Taking a deep breath, I decided to inspect the spot in the actual guest room. Climbing on a chair, I strained to see if there was anything unusual. To my horror, I found a small peephole, old and worn out, but definitely intentional. My mind raced. Who made this? Why? Was it a mere coincidence or something more sinister? And who had access to the attic, aware of our movements? That evening, I pulled Lacey aside and showed her my findings. She too was taken aback. We decided to contact the local historian, hoping to unearth any stories linked to the house. As it turned out, decades ago, the house belonged to a toy maker known for his lifelike dolls. Rumors suggested that he was obsessed with watching people, particularly guests, using the dollhouse as a tool to recreate scenes from their lives. It was never proven, but legend had it that he believed he could control people's actions through the dolls. Although no one could explain Emily's incident or her strange remarks, we couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The historian suggested that the dollhouse be removed and the peephole sealed. Lacey and her family didn't stay much longer in that house, and neither did the dollhouse. It was donated to a museum, locked away behind a glass case, a relic of a time best forgotten. Looking back, the whole experience was a chilling reminder that sometimes the past should be left undisturbed, and not all tales trapped within old walls are meant to be told. We never went back, and Emily, bless her heart, never spoke of the monster again. But on stormy nights, when the wind howls and rain pours, I find myself thinking of that eerie dollhouse and wonder what stories it would tell if it could.